Yeah, it's good to see they talk to you, they understand. But I mean, yeah, I mean, those pocket picks, like you said, it is a case of familiarity. If you're playing in an environment where you're far more familiar with that champion, you're obviously going to have a much better time, even if that matchup is slightly less favorable than it would be convention. So I'm expecting to see a lot of those priority picks sort of slip through and be replaced by what is comfort for these players. But LeBlanc being taken away early, no real surprises. We've seen what it can do in the hands of a capable mid laner. Even for the last decade, it has been one of the scariest mid laners when given that opportunity to shine.
Yeah, at Imogen, a bit of a LeBlanc one trick. Not a one trick necessarily, but very much it's his preference, his safety pick, and another assassin to follow alongside it that he does play in the Akali. I think the stronger of the two champions as just a champion in general. But take those away. Again, it will remove volatility in that mid lane. Pethy, he likes himself that Kayle. He plays a bit of Akshan, plays a bit of Zed. These are all champions that will do perfectly well against his pull, so it does make a lot of sense. On the other side of things, just the tried and tested Yunara are going to be banned away, so it's just a champion that is strong at all levels of League of Legends. So it does make sense to take that away if Guacamole Gary plays it, which of course he does.
Thresh, I mean, while not the be-all and end-all, it does remove what has been a pretty classic pairing in the Aphelios Thresh as of late, but also, again, you'd imagine these players all play on the same server. They know each other pretty intimately, given the small size that we do have comparative to other regions and the experience they have against each other. Fiora taken away from Ocesa in the top lane, Ornn as well. So we're sort of seeing an amalgamation of those targeted bans. Maple is obviously putting a little bit more pride on the mid lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Take away the Fiora, so it does suggest that you're looking for a tank of some sorts up in that top side. I mean, Cassante would strike me as alongside Sion, obviously, as something you could look towards. Rek'Sai, possibly played in the top lane. I'd imagine it's more likely to go into the jungle, but it can absolutely be picked in the top lane. It's just generally not that great of a blind pick as far as top laners come, but we'll see where they do end up going for it. So now it's time for Maplers to pick. I believe the names are switched around at the moment. Maybe I'm wrong.
So it has been fixed.
It has been fixed?
So it is Maplers on the left-hand side.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it gives you that ability to flex it as well, so it does leave a little bit of ambiguity in the draft there for Maplers, does give them that potential to, look at what is being drafted here by low cortisol and say, well, actually, we kind of want to shift them into whether it's jungle or top. Rise coming through for Imogen. And Zaheen, okay, so there's been a mixed bag of reviews for Zaheen, depending on who you talk to and where he currently stands in the competitive landscape. Some more positive than others.
Yeah, I think typically now he has played a lot more in the jungle, and I think that gives him that safety because his lane phase is quite weak. So when you play him in the jungle, you escape that issue, really. You probably will have priority in the mid lane. Of course, we don't see the full matchup, but Ryze is just so good at pushing these lanes that you would expect it to happen. Again, okay, Gwen's going to be picked up. That's also a flex between jungle and top, so not entirely sure as of yet still as to where that Rek'Sai Gwen are going. And Guacamole Gary going to go for the Zeri. Hasn't actually picked up a support alongside it, so this is a pretty good opportunity actually for Maplers to ban out the Lulu, ban out the Yuumi, and that takes away two of the best Zeri pairings.
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels a little bit like a bit of a throwaway, given that you've then taken what is either your other part of that top or jungle straight away. I think you pick the Rek'Sai for that flex capability and then hold off on whatever the other pick would have been. But look, that is the game plan for low cortisol. And so this is likely going to be a Zaheen top, unless, again, it is that flex pick, and we're seeing a Xin Zhao top, which makes less sense, honestly. But how can both players play the same champion? It's a little bit confusing, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, true. The two Chinese guys. Yeah, but it should be Zaheen in the top lane and then Xin Zhao in the jungle. So Lulu going to be banned immediately. Of course, the natural pairing alongside the Zeri. And Tristana. Okay. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I could see.
A targeted ban, absolutely.
Yeah. I can understand why you'd ban it away. That's something we've seen a huge amount of. And the Galio, you'd imagine taken away from Pethy. I don't think we're seeing sort of a three-way role swap sort of shenanigans here, but Karma,
no.
Okay.
Karma. So, I mean, Karma is just a bit of a lane bully, and Zeri does struggle in the early stages against champs like the Karma. It does pair as well, actually. A champion like Karma does really, really well with champs like Xin Zhao and Zaheen. They really do thrive when they have that enchanter buffing them, and Karma being one of the best at buffing multiple people at one time. But Rakan is going to be the lock-in. It's going to pair really well at going forward with Zaheen, going forward with Xin Zhao, but also able to peel the Rise. It's kind of the thing he's best at, is being able to do a little bit of both, sort of jack-of-all-trades type beat when it comes to a support. But last pick will be given to the side of Maplers for their AD carry, and Renata Glask alongside Zeri. Now we are cooking. To me, it feels like we're cooking with ice, but I guess we'll find out. Really,
Yeah, this might. Oh, okay.
There we go. It's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, but even then, that begs the question. So, is this a Gwen mid lane potentially, or a Rek'Sai mid lane in the Olaf jungle? Realistic, it could be an Olaf mid in theory. That Undertow does give you some capabilities when it comes to trading, but I couldn't think for the life of me how any of these three play all that comfortably into a Ryze mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'll just wait to find out. But honestly, hey, I've given up guessing. There we go. It's Gwen mid. All right. I mean, the one good thing about Gwen against range champs is, of course, she does have her W, so she's able to block or dodge out of a lot of damage. And against a champ like Ryze, it can actually provide you a pretty decent safety net. But ultimately, I mean, Ryze will be a little bit vulnerable, right, to the fact that when Gwen hits level 6, she can threaten a little bit with that slow, but there is no CC coming in through the jungle mid duo, so he's always going to have that option to just ult out, and there's no way to stop it. In fact, honestly, on the side of low cortisol, there's barely any CC at all, right? There's like a Renata ult, her Q, and then a knock-up from Rek'Sai, and that is absolutely it. And so for a champion like Ryze, and even this Kai'Sa is going to really thrive in these team fights. It doesn't feel like you have the tools to be able to stop them if they get ahead.
Yeah, it's mildly concerning. You look at this draft for low cortisol, Guacamole Gary has a pretty tall task on his hands, if I'm being perfectly honest, because you haven't got a significant amount of peel other than the hostile takeover, if we're being perfectly honest.
And it's time for the match. Time for, what is it, game 1 of day 2. Kind of zooming through, honestly. Yesterday's games were all very, very exciting. We'll see if today is the same. I mean, we've done some absolute cooking in this draft. There have been some chefs. We'll find out what their star rating is as this game progresses. But, I mean, looking at the team composition, I just have to favor the side of Maple. Like, to me, it's a bit of an absolute clearance as far as comps are concerned. I mean, it does feel nice having Olaf with the Renata, right? Like, giving him that revive passive is sounds kind of scary, but I don't know if that is going to really end up being a win con or not.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's sort of the one saving grace is Captain Tofu is going to be able to just shrug off a lot of the CC that the Maplers are going to bring to bear in a team fight, but the burst damage is then the next question. He can shrug that CC off, yeah, for sure, but can he survive long enough to actually get on a target and do anything of merit? We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll see how Pethy's able to navigate this mid lane matchup as well. I mean, for now, just trying to farm, but honestly, you have that really good scaling on Gwen, but I'll tell you what, Ryze in this season is no slouch. He never was, but now with Actualizer, he is a little bit absurd.
Yeah, definitely an interesting draft to start off the day. Maybe this is it. Yeah, I mean, that is the real question. Is this a Michelin star level meal, or are we looking at uni student food here? That's the real question. This might be a 2-minute noodle sandwich.
Yeah, I think the one issue you run into, when you play a lot of solo queue champions, is a lot of the solo queue, the champs that do thrive in solo queue and just the environment of the incohesion that solo queue does have, is that you don't really get a lot of stability out of them. Like this Gwen mid, right, you're going to just be dropping CS, and it's going to give Ryze so much pressure on the map. So you've got that winning mid lane. Bot lane should be winning for the time for low cortisol, because they do have that double range, but it is still, they're just so vulnerable to any form of gank that comes through as soon as that level 6 is here for Rakan. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that we don't go something like the Spellbook on Rakan this game. I don't think you're actually feeling threatened enough to really justify the Guardian.
Yeah, I mean, look, that is the one problem with sort of solo queue champions are that they are somewhat isolationist. They thrive in and of their own right, not because they synergize particularly well with anyone else. It does become sort of I've got to carry this, otherwise no one else is going to. And that does change pretty significantly when it comes to a competitive environment like this. But yeah, I mean, look, the potential is there for sure. Unfortunately, the path to success here for this Gwen mid lane is going to be a pretty bumpy one.
Yeah. Once you get there, though, I mean, if you make it to a 40-minute game, Gwen does become probably the strongest champion on the Rift. So you have that going for you, but you don't really have a lot of wave clear. You don't have the greatest side laning in the world. In fact, I'd say maybe the Gwen's a better side laner, but Ryze is no slouch, right? Has that permanent move with that realm warp with...
Yeah, they out mobility, which is the big problem, of course. They're just going to have that perennial opportunity to reposition aggressively around the Rift of the Realm, where unfortunately for a Gwen and a Rek'Sai, yeah, there is some mobility, but they're still going to have to run for the better part of it.
Yeah. It depends how you set up your tunnels. If you're Rek'Sai with some good tunnel placement, you can kind of just glide between the lanes. If you've got tunnels
placed so you can get halfway across the map, it begs some real questions about vision control.
That is generally what happens though, right? Because it's very, very scary for people to just walk into the enemy jungle just to take out Rek'Sai tunnels. So you do quite often have the ability to set up some pathing for your tunnels to make getting between whatever lane you're split pushing on and you know, mid lane or dragon or whatever a little bit quicker. Invade coming through here. Olaf trying to ghost on forward. Emihan turns it around. Knockup's there. That's going to be first blood. It's going to be Ryze that picks it up. And Suicune a little bit late to that party. But just seeing the power of that Xin Zhao when paired with the Ryze and really unable to stand up for it without that ultimate available on the Olaf.
Yeah, I mean, Olaf, a rough situation for Captain Tofu for sure, especially when you look at how things are going in mid and top. There is some pretty sizable gaps developing in CS, so the last thing you want is to contribute to that team falling even further behind by dying this early on, especially giving that kill over to a Ryze who already is, 600 gold, near enough ahead.
Dragon has spawned. Indeed. Going to be the Kimtech Dragon. Emihan in the area. Not going to choose to do it for now. Actually, could have been an opportunity to look for it. I'm not sure if Recall definitely has came out already for the Ryze, so they do have that pressure. As soon as this wave is pushed in.
Yeah, plus
just
ticking over 6 there for Imogen. He's just ticked over, so that realm will be available. So reinforcements can come in at a moment's notice to the side of the Maplers. So it is going to have to be a very careful game for low cortisol. You don't want to overcommit to something because that turnabout can be pretty severe from here on out.
Absolutely, round wall coming through. That's going to be Emihan coming down as well. Bad Memory's going to flash away. Guacamole Gary doing much the same, and not able to get the stun there. So able to just narrowly navigate, but it does cost them both their flashes. Heal and barrier was kept from the bottom lane of low cortisol, but still a massive advantage in terms of that power, in terms of that priority around the Rift given to the side of Maple. Or Maplers, shall I say.
Yeah, losing out of the flashes could potentially be a little bit rough, but only if the Maplers then look to try and expound upon those lacking summoner skills. It may be a case of they don't look to try and exploit down in the bot lane. They probably prioritize the Utah. You can see Suicune, pretty standard top lane tactic, which is get behind the tower, look to do a bit of proxy farming, get some recalls off.
Oh my god, Dudu has two culls.
Oh dear.
Tell me that's not a graphical error. Tell me we have just lost 450 gold. Or 350, whatever it is.
I think mistakes have been made, and Suicune also realizing mistakes may have been made.
Yeah, Suicune's gonna die. But does that make up for having 2 culls? Does that make up for it?
Well, probably, I don't know. Historically, you kill a Suicune, unless you've, saved just before the encounter, it's gone. It's done. You can't catch that Pokemon again, so I don't know. It's hard to say who loses out more in that situation.
Yeah, I remember in the LCP, was it Driver accidentally bought 2 culls one time? So no, I think he has accidentally just bought 2 culls.
But no, he brought, it wasn't culls, he brought
it was Bramble Vest.
But Bramble Vest, yeah.
I remember it used to be, this is a bit of lore, but it used to actually be, hold up, ultimate being used there, but, disengage comes through immediately, the phase rush available for the Ryze. It used to be tech on Urgot to just rush culls, because you auto-attack that much and it just gives you flat HP back every auto-attack, that you'd be getting like 12 HP per auto-attack.
That is a bit egregious.
So you definitely can buy multiple. Whether or not he did, it has to be. No one else's inventory looks glitched.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if it was, just a graphical error. Because you'd imagine someone else would also be broken. But either way, 1,700 gold lead here.
Maybe it's right tech. Now. Maybe he's just created tech, and we are unaware of it.
On a Kai'Sa?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
That champ gets to build whatever it likes.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe he comes back to lane after the next recall with only one of them, and then we'll know for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. Setting up some
does he double
down?
Does he double down and just keep it for the rest of the game?
This is a scary time to proxy. I guess he's able to do it before the Void Grubs are taken. He can now look for a recall, but there are no camps up on the top side outside of that scuttle, so Emihan instead just going back down towards his bottom side. That is all up and available. Obviously a ward is going to spot him at that blue buff.
this state in the game, it's not the end of the world. The cortisol, or low cortisol as it is. The gaps have sort of, shrunk a little bit, at least in the mid lane. Oh dear. Not an ideal situation for bad memory at all.
Yeah. Still no flash available, but doesn't go down, so not the worst. I mean, there is ultimate available for Dudu, but choosing not to utilize it. Instead going towards this dragon, so will be an early-ish dragon, I mean 9 minutes, but still a good pickup. Starts towards stacking that dragon. It's not going to be a Chemtech soul, so you're pretty much guaranteed a good soul of some variety.
But there's also neutral control being established here quite confidently by the Maplers. They've taken the grubs, now they've taken the dragon. Unfortunately, low cortisol hasn't really had much of a shout in. Potentially, it's going to be an invade rather than necessarily a tower dive, I think, at this stage. Buttercup, it feels like doing what he can to just try and catch up to Khan at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's got himself a camp lead, and as far as he's concerned, you press tab, look at the CS number, and he's winning lane. Just the jungle mindset. So immediately recalls, pings his Krugs that are spawning in 15 seconds. Classic.
Simple role, simple-minded. Easy to please, honestly, but he does have that experimental hexblade on the Olaf, so he's going to be a bit of a powerhouse now that he does have Ragnarok up and available. Teamfight time is going to be key, though. If he can find himself an avenue in onto a target, it becomes pretty easy for him to deal with them, but again, that opportunity is going to be hard to present, especially if they miss that hostile takeover from bad memory. That is really going to be the setup for this Olaf to run rampant.
Yeah, and I think, one surprise we saw there on the left-hand side, it is currently Imogen with the most gold in the game. Not too far behind, though, Guacamole Gary. So, doing reasonable himself to try and keep himself strong within the context of this game. Doesn't have the support you typically like to have with the Zeri, so is going to be a little bit more alone than perhaps many people are used to. But I'm sure through playing it in solo queue, he's quite used to that.
Absolutely. Buttercup is looking for something here, but he's just going to wait for that engage to come through from the Maplers.
Yeah, we do have ultimate available here for the Rakan. Going to be able to catch up that bot lane. Not going to be able to stop the Olaf in any which way. But straight to the backline. Dudu goes under the tower though. Takes one shot for his troubles. Suli trying to peel, but you can't knock up that Olaf. And through the team fight is Captain Tofu going. There's damage onto him now, but he claims one more. Emihan might go down, but no, it's Imogen that takes up the kill. And will come Pethy. Is he able to find the cleanup? He does have that needlework available to himself, but you see Imogen and Emihan trying to find a way to navigate this. Needlework coming out. He does put down the shroud, flashes away. Emihan getting very, very low. But oh my god, he's taken 2 of them down. And Bad Memory has to flash away on just that single digit HP. It's going to be Maplers that take the team fight win.
That was chaotic, to say at the very least. And you could see what the game plan was there. And it looked like it was working until you remember that there were more than just, the 3 members on each team. And it seemed it was a great bait to start things out. You see Captain Tofu on the Zolaf just running rampant in the backline, and then all of a sudden, Dudu repositions a little too aggressively. Unfortunately, it will spell his death in the end, but Imogen being the one to come in here, capitalize with Han. They get some even more gold on this rise, which is pretty disastrous. It looked like for sure that there was going to be an angle back in below cortisol, but that needlework just a little bit off the money. Pethy having to flash away from that shroud means that he is much more vulnerable, and it's just easy pickups there for the Maplers.
Yeah, well, that is, unfortunately, a pretty big leap forward in gold for the side of Maplers now, and low cortisol a bit against the wall as far as the gold is concerned. Looking up at top lane as well, it's Mazessa making quick work of that Rek'Sai. Of course, very safe on that champ though, so isn't going to be taken out at all. Yeah. 3 grubs means the towers are taking that much more damage as well, and Gwen just having absolutely no priority in this mid lane. In fact, that's just a single dingle.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you've let Arise have a pretty free lane, and pretty free is an understatement in this situation. Yeah. Imogen has just literally been the only one here. He's been playing old Jim's mowing services. He's just been clearing those lawns, getting those paychecks, and roaming. So unfortunately, it's just hard to quantify an avenue back into this game, unfortunately, for low cortisol. Yeah,
a little perplexed by the Gwen. Unfortunately, it hasn't paid off. But again, I mean, there is scaling. Hopefully you can get to that point, but game feeling a little out of hand. In goes Captain Tofu, though. He's finding a lot of damage. There's no way out for this Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is going to fall down. Hostile takeover used. I think a bit of an overcommitment of that ultimate. But it does at least allow them to find that first kill. No Ragnarok available. No hostile takeover. Sully trying to battle a little bit with this Olaf, and in comes the round warp. That's going to be Captain Tofu taken out. Guacamole Gary uses the lightning crash, trying to find the damage. Sully not able to lock him down, but Emi Han absolutely will be able to. One more auto attack. He's going to be knocked up. Double kill for the Xin Zhao. 2.2k damage in the fight for him. He's going to be able to take that Scuttle Crab and laugh away with so much gold in the back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, you drafted yourself an incredibly low-range comp on the side of low cortisol, where literally your longest range champion is, I believe, the Renata, and even then, it's only by a slim margin over the Zeri. I'm not quite sure what the expectation was, especially when you see the Rakan coming through fourth pick. Kai'Sa last pick was not going to suffer all that greatly. And Suicune all this while, he's contributed one death so far, and he's about to contribute a second, I think.
I think he might be out of there. They are still trying to hunt him down. Does have... Okay, got the flash. One thing I want to point out that even Worlds broadcast does not have is I can look at the items and see how much healing Sundered Sky has provided for Xin Zhao and how much damage Kraken Slayer has done. How cool is that? God damn, even Worlds doesn't have that.
Grassroots, baby. It's the new top level of esport. Starting from the bottom once again. We call that prestige. Yeah, 4.4k gold at 15.5 minutes. I don't know. I think, unfortunately, low cortisol here have drafted themselves into a bit of a hole, especially at competitions of this level. That is a lesson that is, I think, going to be invaluable rather going forward for them, because it's going to teach them, actually, we need to put a little bit deeper thought. We need to, sort of shore up some of those weaknesses. And as much as an Olaf can just run rampant in the middle of a team fight with that ultimate going, once that ends, when you go from there.
Popping the Ghost, the Ragnarok going to be used as well. Can he get an auto attack? No, that's just the Ghost and ultimate used for no gain whatsoever. Simple Battle Dance gets him out. Bad Memory gets completely one-shot. And there's a lot of damage coming through this Ryzen Xin Zhao in the current state of this map. Rift Herald placed down mid. Absolutely nothing this Gwen can do to even dream of stopping it. And what a beautiful game for top laners, man. These two have just been left alone on their island. Mozessa, he presses tab, feels good about himself. Seokun presses tab, miserable. And yep. Does get himself away. Gary does unfortunately pop the barrier. Maybe able to find one. No, the auto tech will do it. No! Not able to find it. The auto tech, though, does come through for Hefty, who does pick himself up a kill. Not a lot of summoners left. Seokun comes in. Can he find access to the ultimate? Yes, but it's onto the Xin Zhao, and he's dead before he even re-pops back out. And unfortunately, the teleports are all for naught, as all it means is more kills for the Xin Zhao. Hostile takeover used, but just delaying the inevitability, as he does manage to flash away. Does at least get himself back to safety, all the while Mozessa going to be able to claim himself that top tower. And an absolute trouncing here in our first game of the day.
Yeah, the grilled meats community like to use a certain phrase, and that is shellacking. Is exactly what we're witnessing right now. It has been a very brutally one-sided affair. And, unfortunately, the weaknesses of this draft from low cortisol on showcase. You look at it, trying desperately to get into range to do any significant damage to anyone. Maple's just kited out. They can just run away because they've got that range threat. They've got so much shutdown that the only person who isn't struggling in the situation is Olaf, and even then, he's not surviving through the damage output, especially of a 5-0-7 Rise, who is now currently 4.9k ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you have like a pseudo enchanter with this Renata, right? She has a couple shields and a speed boost that can revive you. But I mean, I just think with the Olaf, you kind of want something a little more. And also, in reality, with the Zeri too, I think a little bit of mismatching in terms of the compositions down here. Ragnarok going to be popped. Guacamole Gary has to head for the hills, as will Captain Tofu. Voidseeker doesn't find its mark, and so able to at least survive for now. This Zeri and Olaf, but still, the game feels like an inevitability, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, that's why we so typically see Olaf jungle played with something along the lines of a control mage mid, because it offers that lockdown so that he doesn't...
What?
Okay. All right, he's out.
All right. Well,
But yeah, as I was saying, I mean, that's why you chuck a control mage mid. Someone who has a lot of CC that can enable the Zolaf to just go absolutely ballistic, allows someone like the Zeri to just come in and play cleanup, as Zeri so want to do when given that time to scale up. But unfortunately, Gwen is anything but a control mage.
Yeah, we're also using ult to clear minion waves. Oh, Lord. Oh, no. Oh, wow. Okay. My God.
Imogen just sunk a 3-pointer on Betty there.
Yeah, Tyson may be going down. Hostile Toga was going to find its mark. They do at least find that one kill. Can they take down Sully as well? Looks like they will. So a constellation prize in the mid lane picked up, but with both Mozessa and Emihan here, I'm not sure getting out is as clear as you'd perhaps hope. Gary is able to get himself over the wall, but no flash on this Renata. Knock up there. Wind meets lightning will connect, and down, unfortunately, will go Bad Memory, paying for the sins of his team.
Well, unfortunate sacrifice on the altar of success for the Maplers, and Suicune might be Mosessa's next target. He's had a pretty free game for himself up in this top lane. Any time that Suicune has gone for a proxy, there's been the support to come in and either fend him off and get that flash away from him, or just kill him entirely. Not a single neutral objective threatened by low cortisol this game either.
Yeah, I mean, Mozessa may be going down. That is going to be the lightning crash. He does get himself that revive available. The knockup can be here from this Rek'Sai immediately after, and with Captain Topher in the area, it's an inevitability that the Zaheen eventually gets found. He's trying to bide some time, but not really anywhere for him to run. He's trying, however.
Nearly, but not quite.
Uh-oh. I see some danger in the bot lane. I see 2 people have died. A tower's about to as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, all that investment for a Zaheen kill in the top lane results in 2 dead and a tower. What's time for low cortisol? So, unfortunately, a position where Maplers have pretty much free reign over the ref. There's very little I think low cortisol can do to hold us off other than delay the inevitable.
Alright, the battles of the junglers. Linzao has a lot more kills, but Olaf typically a very strong 1v1 champion. It is no longer a 1v1.
It was a perfectly fair fight until everyone else got involved. Unfortunately, the nature of a 5 versus 5 mobile multiplayer online battle arena game does mean that it is very rarely a 1v1. And off the back of that, with the near 9k gold lead, Maplers are going to kick off the Nasher himself.
Yeah, a near 9k gold lead, and 6.5k of it is on the rise, which, I mean, I don't know about now, I haven't paid too much close attention, but at least for the majority of this year, it has, in my eyes, been the strongest champion in League of Legends. I think this Rise champ with the actualizer inclusion has just been completely ridiculous. Already was a strong champ. Classic.
Yeah, I mean, look, a champion that was already strong enough, given an item that steroids is an inherent mechanic, is a little bit berserk, if I'm being perfectly honest. That is the work, I think, of a Rise 1 trick who's been stuck for too long in silver and just wants to get out.
Well, I think the best part of it is that not only does it steroid as inherent mechanic, but it also steroids one of the first items he builds in terms of that Seraph shields. It's just, come on, man. Like, did we even consider Rise when we conceptualized this item?
Yeah, it's like the clearly 23-year-old showing up to the under-15 rugby tournament. This dude has had 5 o'clock shadow for the last 7 years, but it's okay. We'll let him play.
Yeah, wow, that's a gold total. I mean, Guacamole Gary, to his credit, has done about as well as he possibly could given the situation. He doesn't really have... Oh, well, he's dead.
Yeah, the one Bastion of Hope completely nullified by Seraph Shield.
Hold up! One good thing about Renata is she can force the other team to kill each... Oh, wow, that Gwen's dead. Yeah. Olaf's going to find a big shutdown on the backline, though. Captain Tofu trying to find as much as he can. He's straight on that Kai, so that could be another one. No, the flash is good. And able to, with that Acathian Rain, take down the kill. It's only Suicune left up and alive. 4 members still there for the Maplers, and they're going to be able to take at least this bot lane inhibitor.
Just goes to show you that even at the grassroots level, there are players who will flash abuse to win fights in games. It's not just a tier 1 pro problem. And what a play there from Dudu to keep himself alive and relevant.
Wow.
He's had despite being down as much as he has against Guacamole Gary, has had a pretty phenomenal game for himself, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, I think, on the Maple is playing pretty well together. Look, I can't excuse the double cull, unfortunately, but it happens. We're going to be able to take down this tower. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels over. I mean, they found about as much as they possibly could, given the fact there is what was a 5-level diff in the mid lane. With that shutdown coming through, Pethy was able to get that level up now, so is the level 13. But Seokun on this Rek'Sai, I mean, he teleports in. He can't really do anything because by the time his teleport actually gets to the bot lane, his entire team has died. Realm Warp coming through. There's Emi-Jun trying to find his way onto Gary, and unfortunately there's no escape for the Zeri. Be taken down, and Mozessa claiming the credit for it. So 8-24 the overall kill score, and eyes potentially on the prize now for the Maplers. I mean, 12k gold lead and just a ridiculous rise. I think should mean, or at least spell the end of this game. Captain Tofu definitely strong in his own right. Still, he's going to pop that ult, so that's a pretty key ability taken away. But there is just so much still available without that Rakan anyway.
Yeah, I think it very much speaks to the state of the game where your one positive takeaway is at least you're only 3 levels down in the mid lane. This has been just a free reign for Imogen. He has had the game of all time. He's not really been all that threatened. Unfortunately, without any considerable lockdown in the mid lane, either from the jungle or mid lane, he was never going to be under threat anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Ryze is always going to thrive against these melee champions, especially the melee champs that aren't assassins, right? Like, you can find some play onto Ryze on things like the Akali, even potentially Sylas, but he still has a relatively okay time against them. What typically is good against Ryze are things that outrange him and also can sort of match his pushing power. This game, they had nothing like that, and so Ryze is able to just insta-clear the wave, insta-kill everyone, teleport down bot. He's finding himself maybe locked up under the tower. The actualizer shield though. Pethy, can he find that kill? No, he absolutely cannot. In the back line, Captain Tofu does get that resurrection, trying to find a way out of here. Realm Warp coming through is going to take it. Can he find it? Oh, he does! Captain Tofu, he even gets himself the triumph on the back end of it too, sitting on a ward here. He's not going to be able to recall in the mid lane though. All the while, Mozessa alongside Emihan trying to look for that end. Pethy trying to do his best to defend, but down 2 levels even on the jungler in that mid lane. Does make it a pretty trying task. Next tower 1 will fall. Sully still delaying the recall here of Captain Tofu. I think you just have to cut your losses and walk back a little bit further away.
Yeah, unfortunately, so I don't think it's going to let him. They're going to do everything they can to stop Tofu from getting this recall off. No, okay, they're going to give it to him. The consolation prize, yeah, look, he does a decent amount of damage in a skirmish, but he also was given a lot of free reign because they were focused more on the rest of his team in that middle of that fight. So, I mean, look, unfortunately, I don't think it's enough to carry the rest of this game over the line.
No, and this is going to be the soul as well. I mean, honestly, I've got to give credit to Captain Tofu. I think he's played a really, really good game for himself. Again, like, considering how over this was from Champ Select, in my eyes, I think it's just like he had such an unplayable game, whereas mid has absolutely no pressure. And he's still been able to find quite a lot of success as an individual. I mean, credit where it's due, but unfortunately, it's not really a doable thing for an Olaf to be able to carry this one across the line, especially now you're up against just so much, right? The Ocean Soul coming through. We are 27 minutes into the game, and Ryze's literal full build cannot buy anything else.
Yeah, 8.7k gold. And I think, yeah, if the draft was a little bit different here for low cortisol and they had something that sets up better for Captain Tofu, this game, I think, looks a little bit different on the whole. Unfortunately, with the Ryze being 9-2-4 and 100 CS up on his opponent, he was always going to run away with the game. But if that enable was there for Captain Tofu on his Olaf, they could have done a lot more, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the success for Ryze, I mean, has to be also given credit to Han, right? A lot of it was, coming down to bot side alongside the Xin Zhao, looking for dives, looking to punish the Zeri and Renata, as well as whenever Captain Tofu looked for a gank down there. So they did really well at playing around each other, but it was, of course, a lot easier because of just how much priority Ryze can get in this matchup.
Absolutely. And I mean, it seems we may be hitting death knell.
Yeah, looking for the top side. It is going to be nice ultimate coming out of Han. Blocking all the Gary, trying to find some damage. Gets absolutely one shot there, unfortunately. Seokun, much the same in the back line. Pethy trying to find a way out. Is going to also go down. It's going to be Emihan that takes that kill. In will come Mozessa. It's only Captain Tofu left. Down he will fall. Down will go the Nexus. And it is going to be the Maplers who take game 1 of today.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunately written, I think, reasonably early on in this game. And to be fair, it probably could have ended a little bit quicker, but to give credit where it is due, Low Cortisol fought back a number of times there, specifically Captain Tofu, doing, I think, more than you could ask of most junglers put in that situation to find himself what was not what was, in the end, a pretty respectable kill score.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they didn't just give up, right? And I think that was really good. Captain Tofu, again, was fighting for his damn life in those team fights, quite often finding these big shutdowns and playing about as well as you could hope for, but it really was just an insurmountable lead that was established there early on for the Maplers, and I think they did a good job of carrying that through to get the win. Obviously, do you need to give over as much shutdowns as they did? Probably not, but we're not, again, looking at Gen G here, and I think for sort of, the level of competition this is, it was a really well played out game and a really good way to end the game there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, for Low Cortisol, obviously going to have to go home and do a little bit of homework because they did sort of draft themselves into a bit of a hole, unfortunately. They gave far too many opportunities across the Rift for the Maplers to really run away what was with a game that was pretty much over by sort of the 7-minute mark because they'd just given so many freedoms. So, look, even in spite of that, they still had a couple of moments where they really shone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think they're out of this competition by any stretch of the imagination, but again, you just go back to the drafting board and look at what we could potentially look at. In that mid lane, I think, Gwen is not necessarily the champion I associate Pethy with, and he does have champions that can have more pressure. Are they good against the Ryze? I mean, I don't think he particularly has many champs that are good against Ryze specifically, so it can even be a champ you just look to target out and try and play around that way, right? This game, targeting away at some of those assassins. But he plays the Zed. Maybe you could look for a matchup like the assassin versus the Zed where it does come down to sort of who has the better hands. And Pithy absolutely has good hands. So it could be something they look towards in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, to their credit, though, Maplers, they knew exactly what they needed to do. They got the game in a position that was easily winnable, and they did not ease up on the gas pedal from there. They pretty consistently controlled every single lane. They consistently controlled all the neutrals. They didn't drop a single neutral through that entire game. So huge respect to them to know what they needed to do and then execute upon it.
Absolutely, but that is the first game of the day, all done and dusted. Once we come back from our break, we're going to have the second game of the night, which is going to be Chudlings versus Melbourne University Esports. So we'll see you very shortly.